はい、皆さん、こんにちは。背番号100番、ベースボールコーチのアレックスでございます。どうぞよろしくお願いします。さて、今日は、Madison Cawthorn という U.S. Representative、今現在25歳のコングレスマンなんですけども、日本語で言うと、マディソン・コーソン、米国下院議員ですね。下院議員ですね。デビッド、フルネームはですね、デビッド・マディソン・コーソン。でも一応コングレスの中ではマディソン・カーソンと言われてるんですけどね。アメリカの、共和党のメンバーであって、2020年に、選挙で勝利して、ノースカロライナの州の第一、議会国の米国代表ということで、ここに書いてありますけれども、簡単に言いますと彼は車椅子なんですけども、非常にトランプも大好きで、非常にね、今はね、話題に、ね、するものすごくパワーがあるし、ただ、ちょっと悲しいことが一つあったのは、彼がですね、SUV で、友達と一緒に彼が運転してなかったけど違う人が運転してまして、それがなんと居眠り運転で、事故を起こして、かわいそうに車椅子になってしまいましたけれども、とにかく一生懸命に頑張ってるので、これからすごいことになるんじゃないかな、将来の大統領っていうかもしれないですね。とにかく素晴らしい。だから彼ですね、インタビューもあるので、テキパキ答えてるところもあるので、まだフレッシュなのにテキパキ答えてるし、言いたいことははっきり言うし、やはりね、本当にね、どうもデモクラティックというか、民主党の方が先に先手をいろいろ打って、で、リパブリカンは共和党なんかね、見てるとね、いつもなんかディフェンスに行ってるのね。だから僕としてはオフェンスもやってほしいなと思ってますけれども、彼はこの若い子たちがみんなすごいパワーがあるし、すごいいいと思いますので、ということなんで、今日はマディソン・カーソンを若手ホープと言いますか、ご紹介いたします。さて、インタビューはこちらですね。はい、いたしましょう。はい、どうぞ。
Discuss the impeachment and the attacks on conservative representatives who stood up for election integrity. I'm joined now by North Carolina Congressman and the youngest guy in Congress, Madison Cawthorn. Congressman, welcome back to the program. How are you, sir?
Dan, as always, doing great, and I'm happy to be back on the show.
So I'm sure by now, because you're there in the halls of Congress, you heard Speaker Pelosi's press conference today discussing the impeachment. We just ran a portion of that. One of the reporters kind of had the guts to say, how is this unifying if you're going to move forward with impeaching a president who's no longer in the Oval Office? Your thoughts on Pelosi's comments today?
Well, there's a multitude of thoughts. First, this sets an extremely dangerous precedent. Moving forward with impeaching a private citizen, someone who's no longer in office, is nowhere in the Constitution. The Senate does not have that authority, and I think it's nothing but divisive for them to do that. You know, I had a floor speech the other day where I called for unity. I said, I'm willing to reach my hand across the aisle. I will forsake partisanship to work on behalf of the people of the United States of America. But unfortunately, the only unity that they are interested in is the Soviet style of unity, or the Roman imperial style of unity, where they go in, they create a desert, and they said that they have peace, or where they've gotten rid of every single voice of dissent, and then they say that everybody agrees with us. It's the version of unity where they don't have to hear any opinions but their own.
And
要するに彼が言ってるの簡単な話しますとですね、要するに大統領はもういなくなって、そのインピーチする、弾劾をするということは外すわけですから、もう外れてるわけだから、しかもどこの法律上にもアメリカの法律では、その出てからは彼を弾劾するということはちょっとありえないということをおっしゃっておりますよね。はい、続きましてどうぞ。
I'm glad you brought up that point, that there's nowhere that says you should be impeaching a private citizen, yet they move forward. So to me, and I think the majority of millions and millions of Trump supporters and conservatives out there is, this is political theater only to stop President Trump from ever running for political office again. Would you agree with that?
You know, I'd even go a step further. I would agree with your assumption on that, but also, is their only hope at keeping their very fragile constituency together? You know, AOC Democrats look a lot different than Nancy Pelosi Democrats or Chuck Schumer Democrats. And right now with Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, every single leader of the Democratic Party was born in the 1940s. These people are not, they don't represent any version of diversity. They represent no version of diverse thought. And so the only way that they're going to be able to keep their fragile constituency together is to keep saying, oh, look, we're fighting against Donald Trump. When he's going to be on the back nine at Mar-a-Lago, and they're going to still be saying, you're the reason for all our problems. I've got a newsflash for you, Democrats. It is because of liberal policies that our country's in a bad spot.
This country is divided because primarily, I believe, of the Democrats, but I'm going to go a step further. The mainstream corporate media, for 5 years, they've done nothing but divide this country. They've not covered stories that should have been covered, like the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop and the connections to his dad, our now president. But then they inflated and infuriated people on the right, conservatives, by reporting negative stories on them, the supporters, and the president. So I blame the media and the left for this massive chasm, this divide in this country. I want to ask you about how it's going for you and for the other Republicans who stood up on the 6th and said, I'm taking a stand for election integrity. We've seen now these attacks from Democrats wanting you guys completely thrown out. Some are just saying censured, but some just want you gone. And they're going as far as to say that you and others maybe like talked with or, I don't know, coerced with some of those bad actors that stormed the Capitol building. I mean, aren't you just disgusted by these comments being made about you and your colleagues?
I made the comment earlier that the only kind of unity they're interested in is one where there are no voices of dissent coming against them. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're targeting conservative Republicans like myself and people like Matt Gaetz. You know, Dan, I've even said on your show multiple times that I think the Republican Party of old has had too little backbone. But you know, I've got to hand it to Republican leadership in the House recently. They have recruited a new class of Republicans like myself and people who are willing to come up here and fight. And I'll tell you, the Democrats don't like it. They do not like going up against real patriots, people who are going to stand up and fight against them. And so I encourage everybody across the country, no matter how old you are, as long as you're over 25, please come join me in Congress and give me some reinforcements. I need some backup to fight against these people.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you're still using the word fight, because it's okay to say we're fighting at the ballot box, fighting with our voices. You're fighting with your vote in the halls of Congress. You're allowed to say that. It's like ever since the 6th, the left have now demonized the word fight, that if you say it, you're promoting, you're inciting physical fighting amongst left and right. And that's not what we're saying. We're fighting for our conservative values and keeping our conservative voice out there in the forefront, because it's being diminished not only by everyone on the left, but also all of their mainstream media lapdogs. Speaking of that, got to ask you about these comments now coming from a lot on the left. We're hearing them from celebrities, former and current TV anchors and hosts, and Democrat leadership, that somehow Trump supporters need to be deprogrammed. I even heard the term enlightenment in camp. Last time we heard about camps and putting people in camps or deprogramming them, we know what happened. 6 million people were killed. So that's some pretty damn scary language to hear from the left.
It's things that Democrats do that scare me to death. One is that they redefine words. You know, they've made white supremacy become something that they define almost anything that is contrary to what they believe. I have even heard that people who are pro-life, that is actually founded in white supremacist ideology, when that is the exact opposite. You heard the founder of Planned Parenthood who said that the reason that she was starting Planned Parenthood was to limit the number of biracial or black children that we have born in this country. And so what their left is doing is they're starting to redefine words so they can start attacking us more and more vigorously. Also, they're starting to be very careful with the language they're using. You look at the comments that they're saying about people like myself and people like other Trump supporters. They're starting to use the word like homegrown terrorists. Because if you think about what we're allowed to do with terrorists, we can spy on them, we can seize their assets, we can do things that we can't do to normal citizens. So we need to start listening to the words that they're using. It's very dangerous.
Yeah. So they're using these phrases, or a dog whistle, or whatever you want to call them, and I know exactly what you're talking about. You and others are now being labeled insurrectionists, and if you're labeled an insurrectionist or a terrorist, then you can go back to the rules put in after 9/11 that the Bush administration put in, and they can do a wiretap, right? Without getting a judge's approval or permission. They can just start stalking you guys, tracking everything you've done, and violating a lot of your civil liberties and rights without a judge's approval or warrants because they label you as a terrorist, which is the most absurd thing I have ever heard. But this is the state of our country we're living in, and I got to tell you, Madison, wow, I'm scared. I really am. They're giving me the hard rap, but I've got to ask you this, Congressman. Give the folks some hope out there, because I've gotten a lot of emails and messages since the inauguration. Of course, a lot of people, the wind's out of their sails. They're wondering what's going to happen next in this country. And to look and see the White House, the House, and now the Senate under Democrat control, a lot of people are worried the next 2 to 4 years what's going to happen in this country with our rights and our liberties.
And one, we've got to be thankful for the America First movement that started with Donald Trump. He got a lot of very important and crucial judges on the Supreme Court and in all the federal circuit judges and courts. That's going to be able to be a safeguard against this very, very radical left that we're going to see start coming out of the House and Senate. But when we're very concerned about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I've got to encourage everyone in America. We are stronger than they are. We are stronger than you think we are. Not one man and not one woman can ever destroy what America is. Because we're not just a people, we're an idea. And so long as we hold to the tenets of our founding fathers, of tenets of our liberties, and what makes this country great, then no one will ever be able to stop us. And so I encourage everyone, one, you should be praying for our country fervently. We are in dangerous times. And two, you should become an activist in everything that you do. You know, now that you've seen how the Democrats have let activism seep into our sports, seep into our movies, seep into every area of our life, we now have to fight back just as hard. We are fighting for the future of our children and our grandchildren. And if we let this country go now, we will never regain it.
Can't believe you're 25 years old, Congressman. I love having you on the show every single time. You keep up that fight, and I will say that word, and I'll take the heat. Let's continue to fight. We have to have voices like you, not only in the halls of Congress, but on the farm, in the city, from the east to the west coast. We have to continue this fight, or who knows what the future may hold. Congressman Madison Cawthorn, thank you so much for coming on the program. We truly appreciate it. And with everything going on with you, please stay safe. Watch your six.
As always, Dan, thank you, brother. See you soon.
Discuss the
ということでね、まあ、なかなか、すごい、素晴らしい若いね、25歳の彼、まあ、車椅子ではありますが、テキパキ物事をしっかり言うし、まあ、とにかく、今後はすごい期待したいと思っております。ほとんどいろんなものに触れましたね。まあ、皆さんも聞いていただいたと思いますけども、私がもう、ああだこうだ言うよりも、まあ、聞いていただいたと思っておるんですけども、まあ、とにかく彼をも応援していただきたいと思っております。なかなか、マディソン・カートーンはなかなか素晴らしい若手で、将来をですね、期待したいと思っております。今日はどうもありがとうございました。また今後ともよろしくお願いいたします。